Welcome to our first Story Marks call. This is the first time we're doing a national support for everyone who's involved with this outreach. And so with that, it's an awesome way to do this outreach because it means you get the support, the marketing, all the different types of email reminders to help you plan along the way. So it just makes everything really easy. So because if you're opting in and everyone who opts in through this process, you're basically just getting a lot of help to do it. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a really good process. Did someone else join us? No? Okay, I'll just keep going. So with that, Story Marks is all about women's stories, and tattoos is a huge trend right now, just like we were talking about earlier, especially with younger women. It seems like everywhere I look, someone has a tattoo, and it is such a quick and easy way to go deep real fast. Just if you've ever asked someone about, well, what's the meaning behind that tattoo, or why'd you get it, or what was your experience? They just jump in pretty quick. And it's a really unique way to really share your story, but also share about Jesus. I have a tattoo right here on my wrist, and it is the #1 way that I share about Jesus. People ask all the time, your tattoo is awesome. What's it about? And then I just start talking about my story, and Jesus is part of it. And so it's just a really natural way to go there. And that's why tattoos is the inspiration for Story Marks, because it just recognizes where culture is at, and we want to be relevant. So that's kind of where it came out of. With that, we have created lots of resources for you guys to be able to do this well. And I'm going to share my screen so that you can see this guide. It's a digital guide that we put together so that it'll walk you through the planning process for Story Marks. And if it might seem long, but really we're just giving you as many details as possible so that whatever question you might have, we're addressing it. But I'm just going to briefly go over it just to give you an idea of what's going on from a big picture view. And then you will get this guide in your email, I think tomorrow, and you'll be able to go through it more in detail and think through that. So as I go through, if you have questions that maybe I didn't address through this, just keep those at the end, and we'll have some time to answer your questions from there. So I'm going to share my screen here. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me, is this it? Yes. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So this is the Story Marks digital guide. It is in draft form, and we just been working so hard to put this together so that you guys have something in your hand that can help you plan. But it's with that, there's some details and different things that we're gonna work out. But everything in this is gonna help you. Okay, so this is a sort of a PowerPoint presentation. You can actually click into these different aspects to get more information about Story Marks. So up here, for instance, is some information. So I'm going to click into that, and it just tells you some tips about how to use it, that it's intuitive. You're going to use the arrows to go backwards and forwards. And then at the very bottom, you can click in here to get all the resources that are embedded throughout. So if you find that you wanted a certain document and you can't remember where it is through the presentation, you can go here and click on it. So some basics, if you want to go click in there, and just some information about Story Marks. This is a video that is all about Story Marks and what it is. And if you've been on the Facebook, which we'll get to a little bit later, you can also watch that there. I'll let you guys do that on your own time when you get the chance, but you should watch it. It's really fun to see. And just a little bit about Story Marks. You probably all have gotten the Story Marks intro document, which is also right here. And here are some sample events. So these are the events that have occurred and are currently in process. Our very first one was in California, in LA. And this just shows, this is happening in all sorts of places. This is a picture from the LA event. Here's one of the displays of one of the women and their story just right underneath it. And you'll see here that even though this was in a community gallery, we are having it in coffee shops and other general venues. So don't limit yourself. These are just ideas of what's been done. You can get creative. Kentucky, Portland, and all that. So we'll just head back to the main menu. So that's just a little bit of about, just some basic information of Story Marks. And here is where you're going to get information to plan your event. So with planning, there's just 3 major pieces to it. There's the prep work from here to the event, there's the event itself, and then there's the follow-up group. And these kind of break down the different aspects of it. And you can get in there. We'll talk a little bit about first steps in a bit. Photo shoot. And Storytellers goes through picking a place, when and how, different tips, picking out a photographer, and gathering your team. We'll talk a little bit about that in the end. The day of the event, the follow-up group. So I'm just briefly going over it just so you kind of get a big picture of it again, but you can go back in here and go through and get all this information. Day of event, we have a checklist for you to just make it really easy to plan. Some information on doing your follow-up group. All the way back. And then your follow-up groups. We really emphasize the small group dynamic that happens after each one of our events. You probably know this, but going to an event, you can go and then you can leave and that's it. But we want more conversation out of that. And so we really emphasize the significance of having a follow-up group available. And what happens at Story Marks is that you have women share their stories, you have their photographs up, they've gone through this awesome process where they're discovering their own story through it. They're really feeling beautiful because they're getting photographed. And they go through this whole process, and we're starting to understand that we're part of a bigger story, and that story has to do with Jesus. And so with that, we want to continue that conversation. And so we want to make sure we have a group, something happening after where we can do that and have the women come back to it. So some recommended ideas are here. We have resources here. You can read through them, which one you think you want to narrow in on. Stories of 4 Greats is something we created that goes through the stories of the perspectives of Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr., Corrie ten Boom, and Jesus in a really article, interview kind of way. And so it's a really great conversational starter, and people can connect with all these stories from them. And it's just a great way to just start spiritual conversation. We have our series here, the Known and the Neff, and they facilitate 4-week study, and it's all about the topic that they're named after. And you could read more about that, but just to start these conversations. And then we have training for the small group leader. And so if you have someone who's interested in doing that but need a little bit more support, we have that there as well. And of course, here is where we get to hear your stories. So we really want to hear that from you and give you an opportunity to share what's happened, what God has done. So going back to the main menu, this last section is all of our training and resources that we want to invest in you as a leader. And it's going to go here. These are some essentials of what it's like to be Stonecraft leader. And we want you to feel like a confident leader. So all of these items here are going to be about that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the guide. And I'm going to pause right there. Does anyone have any questions about just the overview of the guide? I'll just pause. I know that I just said a lot, but no questions? I did an amazing job. This is great. Perfect. Okay, well, since we got to go over big level overview of story marks, I'm just gonna
I have a
oh yeah.
just took me a minute to get my screen on and everything. I just wanted to know a couple things. What do you recommend as a time frame from start to finish
For the
to do
actual
a story?
event.
You're right.
Yeah, so we actually have some sample event timelines that we've included in the guide. So
Okay.
you actually can go through and look at what people have done before and decide, what fits for you. But typically, it's not more than 2-3 hours for the actual event.
Oh, no,
Um,
I meant planning of the event. From the time you start planning until you actually have the event.
oh, I see. Yep. So we are saying about 2 months of planning is sufficient for the event. And we have this support leading to the event happening in October. So if you're opting into our support and all our calls, that means we are driving everything so that you can have the event in October sometime in the month. But really, it only takes about 2 months. And 2 months being able to put the event up, picking a location, having all those event details, but then putting the event up on Facebook, having our marketing materials sent to you, gathering women who want to be photographed to share their story, getting them the support that they need through helping them shape their story, and then getting the photo shoot, and then the actual event. So as far as when women are actually getting together officially is really the photo shoot and the actual event. And then anything you're talking to women throughout, that's kind of all throughout. But it really only takes about 2 months to do.
Okay. And then typically if people have been just finding volunteer photographers, are you looking for more professional photographers? Is a cell phone recommended, avoided?
Yeah, so we actually have used professional photographers. We've also used photographers who photograph just because it's their hobby. But the ones that we have used have had an actual camera that they've taken pictures with. Um, Finding a photographer hasn't really been an issue just because there's so many people who love to do it as a hobby, let alone some people who do it professionally. And most photographers will love the vision of showing women's stories. And so just kind of thinking through your connections, and as you're getting women who are going to help you on your team to do this outreach, ask them, do you know any photographers? And then go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Rachel, I had a question as well. I
Mhm.
know that you have been part of, I think, all the story marks that have happened, and you had mentioned that the majority of the photographers have volunteered their services. What
Mhm.
what is the what's the compelling reason why they would do that, or what's the benefit to them on why they would volunteer to do it versus to be paid?
Yeah, that's a great question. So all of our photographers have been volunteers because they have been really into the vision. So one, there's that, just sharing women's stories behind their tattoos, being able to work on a really unique project has been a huge draw for photographers. But also the fact that they get to use this space to display their work up. And we cover the materials, we cover the venue, so it's like a free opportunity for them to showcase themselves and put out their photography cards, their business cards on the table. And, just the couple of photographers that have done it already have gotten a lot of connections through Story Marks after that. And so that's just been a really neat way to be really mutually benefiting.
Now, you have considered this a gallery experience. What your vision is for people to kind of experience it as a gallery. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So really, Story Marks really depends on your team and what you want to do. Your area, your area best. And so we allow a lot of room for flexibility and creativity. But the bones of it is that we have the women photographed and we put the photographs up on display, almost like an art gallery format. And so as people come in at the day of the event, they come in almost like they would for an opening gallery night. They walk around, they read the stories, they maybe grab some snacks if you have that. And then sometime in the evening, we'll have women get up and share their stories live. And at the very end, we make this connection. Like we all share common themes of human experience. And maybe that's because we're part of one big story, a story that's bigger than us. And that's where we start to talk about Jesus and invite women to continue that conversation. So everybody's done it a little bit differently. Could be more casual, could be bigger if you want it to. In Kentucky, they had the women stand by their pictures, so it's like live models, and you get to walk up to the models and ask them questions about their stories. We've done it different ways, and so really we're open to your creativity.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions before I go to kind of the list of first steps? Awesome. Okay. So some first steps. So I just said a lot of information, general overview. We're going to send you all of this in an email with this guide and some more information. But just for now, as you're thinking about starting this, here's a list of things that you can do now. One would be start to ask friends and people who you know to be a part of your team to do this. It really doesn't take very many people, but having just anywhere from 2 people to 5 people will be great so that you're not planning the whole thing on your own. So getting some people involved as I'm saying this, maybe people's names are coming to mind. Just start writing those down and contacting them. Invite them to the Facebook that we have. I'll show you that in a few minutes. But just start to share a little bit about Story Marks and invite them to do it with you. Another thing would be to start to think about a location, a venue, and a day in October that you want to do it. So this could be a coffee shop, art gallery, just a general event venue. We actually had one that's connected with a church because they had a different building that's part of their campus that was connected with the community. So things like that would work, but really staying away from the church building and doing something that generally anyone from the community would feel comfortable in. And then picking out a photographer, just as we were saying earlier, start to think about what photographers photographers in the area, and start to see if they would be interested in working on this project with you. That would be easily another person that's part of your team, just a photographer jumping in and being a part of it. And then lastly would be gathering women who want to share their story behind their tattoos. And keeping in mind, most women, they probably don't want to get super vulnerable, or some women might not feel like they're qualified. I had so many women say that. And so really encouraging them and say, you have a story. Everyone absolutely has a story. And maybe their story behind their tattoo may not have initially been super meaningful, but I bet you it has become meaningful in some way. So whatever story that might be, the story of how they got their tattoo, what was happening at the time, or what's happened since then, the meaning behind it, whatever it might be, just to start inviting women. Some places that really worked for me would be coffee shops because everyone's really young and a barista and they have tattoos, the whole thing. So, I mean, I have talked to a lot of baristas just saying, you have a tattoo. This is awesome. What's your meaning? And then inviting them to be photographed. It's a huge compliment to be asked, invited to be photographed and share your story. Also, going into tattoo parlors in town is a great way because the tattoo artists will also potentially, be a part of the event, but they know the people in town who've been tatted and they've heard the stories, so they'll have a lot of connections there. But I know that you probably have friends and friends of friends who have tattoos and would want to be a part of it. So if you just start to kind of make a list of those people and start asking them if they want to be a part of it, that's something that you can do now. And of course, if you run into any issues, let your field director know, and we can absolutely help you find more people. But that's really hasn't been an issue at all. Okay, any questions about that? Those are some first steps.
I just want to know if you have a recommended number of women who are not are believers. It was my understanding that some of the women would not necessarily be Christian that are sharing their stories and getting photographed. So, is there any that are Christian? Do you have a like 1, 2, 3, 0? What's your recommendation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do have women who are Christians and non-Christians sharing their story behind their tattoos. And this is a really key element because it's a way to just start bringing in non-Christians right away. And they're going to bring their family and their friends. And so this is a key element. And so bringing them along is awesome. Having women who are Christians being a part of it, that's how we're sharing about Jesus. And so bringing those women on as well and mixing them up into the same group, it's just to build relationships and have that testimony too is really powerful. So yes, to both. I've had different sort of percentages of Christians to non-Christians, and I don't think there's really one that's better than the other. Obviously, you wouldn't want every single person to talk about Christianity behind their tattoo because that's going to seem like this isn't what really you're saying. You know what I mean? We want everybody to feel comfortable when they come, if they're not a Christian, to still connect with the story and feel like this is including a variety of women because that's what we really want is a variety of women. Um, yeah, so I hope that answers your question. As far as how many women, knowing that, kind of thinking through how long you can pay attention when you sit is kind of how I think about how many women should share and the time frame. So I've been different ways. We have some training that we'll send you. I actually have a video of how to shape your story when you share, and we're going to send that link to you so that you can give out to women. But that is really for 5 to 8 minute sharing. And so if you have women who are sharing, say, 5 minutes, and you can only really sit for half an hour, that's only so many women. So breaking it up or getting creative or letting women have some more time, but having less women share, that's really up to you. But we all have those, we have those parameters also in the guide to kind of give you samples as well. We've had, as far as being photographed, we've had women who have been photographed but not necessarily share too. So you can always have a mix of that. This next Story Marks that's happening in Sacramento, I think we have 15 women who are photographed. Yes, 15 women who are photographed, and then only 4 of them are sharing if it's next one. So that's just to give you an example of another way that can be done.
the photographer that's going to do the portraits or the pictures, do we need to ask them to stay on to take pictures for the event for your ministry, or how does that work for the actual event itself?
Yeah, if they'd like to take pictures for the event, they are welcome to do that. But if that's not going to work out for them, just taking pictures on your phone would be fine, or having someone with a camera who takes pictures of the event would be great. So you can just kind of be flexible with that.
Okay. Right.
Great question. Any other questions about first steps or anything so far? Again, most of this is going to be in your email for you, so you can go back to it and give some more time and thought, because I know you might need to process it.
Rachel, can you talk about how, like the expenses of it? Like, does it cost much, and do you charge anything for the event?
Yeah, so one of our events we have charged with Eventbrite set up with it so that we can charge for tickets. All the other events we haven't charged, but we've had donations and been had an area at the event asking for donations to continue Starmarks forward. It's really up to you, but it is something to keep in mind. Anything that you're creating expenses for should cover itself in your event. So really the thing that's going to cost most are the prints, so the photographs themselves, but you can always sell those back to, women want their own picture, just to say, they're, I don't know, 5, 10, whatever it is to cover the cost of it. You can do it that way. And then any food that you're going to have, you can ask for a donation if you want. We have donation letters specifically for this. So you can hand them something, and maybe a grocery store or some local coffee shop or whatnot can donate for you. And then the venue itself. So some venues I've been able to get for free, and some have been, it'll cost a little bit. So that's going to be the main cost, and to keep that in mind will be really important. We do have a way for you to get connected with our purchase card, and so we call it our P card, and we can set that up with you through your field director. This is just like a credit card that you can use for purchasing 4 items for Storymarks. And so you can put those expenses on there, and as you get costs covered through the event, you'll be able to reimburse that and put that back into our budget and our card. Do you want to say anything more about that, Doris? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. What's the average turnout so far for the ones that you guys have had, like head count?
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. The first one was about 50. This last one was about 70, and I'm not sure what Kentucky was. This Portland one is going to be a smaller casual gathering, so I'm guessing it's probably about 20 or less. Yeah, depends on kind of what you're going for, like the bigger draw or more casual connection. So both are great.
I had one more question.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, that's no problem.
I saw on the Facebook, I know it's a women's event, but there were some men at one of them. Is it specifically for women, or is it a co-ed event? Like, how should you advertise it?
Yeah, so it is an event that features only women, and the small group is going to be geared towards women, but men and women are invited to come and partake in the actual day of the
To the event.
event. And in Kentucky, we actually had a male photographer who was a brother of one of the women who were being photographed. So men are allowed to be involved. I guess it's the weird way to say it, but it is geared towards women as far as them being photographed and the small group and everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, let's go and take a look at the Facebook page. And I just want to, if you have not gone on to this Facebook page, it's facebook.com/storymarkscommunity. Go on and like it, and you're going to be able to see all the updates we have, all news and everything. And you'll be able to see also the stories of women who have been a part of it in the past. And you can take a look at this for helping women kind of understand how we're putting the stories together and everything. And let's go down a little further. Yeah, so it's kind of starting here, and it has their story with their photo, and this is the story that's up with their photo at the event. And so after the event happens, submitting these stories in with the photograph to your field director, I will be able to put them up, sort of do like a woman of the day after the event, and continue to share their story through that. So take some time and read these when you get a chance, because they're pretty inspiring. And you'll see there's a mix of stories that are directly about Jesus, and then stories that are just, about life. So take a look at that when you can. This is also where we post our events. And you'll be able to see those there. Once we post the event up, we'll be able to do advertising through that. Okay, and then seeing if there's anything else to cover. Maybe we could just read one of these since we have about 10 minutes. Also keep in mind that this is a seeker platform, meaning there's a mix of Christians and non-Christians who follow this page. And so this is kind of how we keep women connected, even if they're not going to join a small group or they're not really ready to get involved, but they love the idea. Maybe they want to in the future. This is where we kind of keep women connected, and they can message us. We've gotten a lot of women who want to be a part of it through just this Facebook page, so it's a really great tool. So here is just one of the stories. It's in the Storymarks document, but this is Sahar. She was in our first Storymarks event in LA. And since we have a few minutes, just would love to read her story and just to show the power of these stories. It says, I was born in Saudi Arabia, grew up in a Muslim family, and was fully covered at the age of 7. I worked hard in school. When I was 9, I came home excited that I got good grades. I showed my uncle my certificate, and he told me, that's not what matters. You will get married someday, and you will stay home at your husband's house. I worked hard to prove myself and to be someone. My dream was to leave Saudi Arabia and find the freedom I deserved as a woman. My tattoo is a fairy on my shoulder because I wanted freedom. I wanted to fly. I wanted to be like a fairy and fly away to find that freedom. When I came to America, I remember Christians kept telling me Jesus loves you. I didn't know what that meant and wondered why he loved me. I decided to figure out more about this Jesus who loves me. After questioning God for 6 years, I found in him the freedom I had been searching for, and I gave my heart and life to Jesus. So that's just one example, and I encourage you to just read through them. Okay, so last notes, and we're just about to finish, but just some last notes. In your follow-up email, we'll be sending you, again, a link to this guide. We'll be sending you information about our next call and some extra tidbits that you will need along the way. And of course, if you have more questions, which I'm sure you will, you can go ahead and send those to your field director, and she's going to be able to help with you there. Doris, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think that really covers it, Rachel. Just encourage people to, the video is on the Facebook page, right, Rachel?
It is, yeah.
So they can share, definitely become friends and follow Storymarks community on the Facebook page, and then share the videos and you'll be surprised at how people respond. So, yeah, so, let your community know that, that this event may be coming. So, and then just pay attention to any emails that we'll be sending out for the next set of calls.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll also have another call available. So the next call that we'll have available for you is just to continue to help brainstorm and answer any questions you might have. And that's going to be next month. We'll send you info on that. We'll have the event in October, and then the next month after that, we'll just have one more call available where you can share about what God has done and share some stories, let us know any feedback, and celebrate with you. So yeah, I just know that I've seen this event happen a few times now, and I know that God will use it, and it is really remarkable to see the transformation that happens in women wherever they're at, whether they're Christian or not Christian. I mean, women are gonna take away something about who they are and who God is. So I'm excited for it.
I would say also, if for those of you who are on the phone and are listening and you haven't registered yet, just to make sure that you go to www.stonecrop.org/storymarks, and that will take you to kind of a registration page that you can just share your interest in either bringing story marks to your community or participating or just attending one. And then you'll get on the communication stream so that you can continue to be invited to these calls. So just go to stonecrop.org/storymarks and sign up so that you can continue to receive these different activities and calls that will be coming in the next few months.
Awesome. Well, let me pray for you, and we're going to send out this recording too. So if you feel like you needed to rehear anything, you'll have that available. So I'll pray for us, and then we'll end from there. God, thank you for this time and what you're doing here. Thank you for these women and their heart for you and their heart for their community. I just pray right now, Holy Spirit, that you would just start to draw the women who you're bringing in their cities. Start to soften their hearts. Start to call them out, Lord. Start to bring the women who even are far away from you to come and share their story and be a part of it. God, bring the ones who are unlikely. We thank you for this. We just pray that you would go before us. I know you will. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, everybody.
Amen.